Hi guys, welcome back to the Improvement Season podcast. Those of you who are watching this episode on YouTube will immediately see that Mike is wearing something that you wouldn't expect him to be wearing. It's not Rascal apparel, it is hospital apparel. And so now those listening know that Mike's been in the hospital and he has his arm in a sling here. And yeah, you messaged me a couple of hours ago, kind of been like, hey, Steve, can we have a chat? And yeah, unfortunately, it seems like you had an accident. Thankfully, you're still here with us and chatting. So it could have obviously been a lot worse, but I'm so sorry to hear that this happened, Mike. I was just thinking, I'm pretty sure this isn't the first time you've come off your bike, but I'll let you go over it.
No, yeah, you're right. This is the second time I've had a bit of a major accident, although I'd probably say this is slightly worse. The first accident that I had was on my bike, and I had to swerve from not getting hit by a car, and I ended up face planting a wall. So I had a big gash across my face. So it was a lot more visual, but it wasn't fortunately that serious. Unfortunately, my face is fine. But basically what happened is I was normal Thursday morning, kind of wake up, go to the gym. So I was cycling to the gym, and I was approaching a roundabout, and I'd already kind of checked, and there was no cars coming right. And as I was kind of crossing the roundabout, I could see, like, in my peripheral vision there was a car on my left, but obviously they give way. And then before I knew it, I was on top of, like, the car had just smashed me from the side, and I just went straight over, and I landed directly on my arm and my shoulder. And yeah, and then that was that. Basically, it was yeah, to say the least. It was, yeah, very painful. Was ambulance called, got taken to hospital, and I basically spent I've spent the whole day in hospital, basically, apart from when I came home and I messaged you. But I mean, fortunately, the like because I dislocated the shoulder, and I've also fractured it, and the pain was really bad when the shoulder was out, but when they've put it back in, the pain has significantly reduced at rest, which is why I feel totally fine doing stuff like this, because sitting here now, I feel bruised, but I don't feel in pain, if that makes sense. So yeah,
God,
there you go.
dude, this is just, it's one of those things that it's just like you come back to that, what's it called? I've forgotten. What can you control? Like, you couldn't have done anything different in that situation. And I guess, thankfully, you're resistance trained. So, one, you have muscle mass to help kind of secure you in that sense, but also you have stronger bones. So, thankfully, it was a fracture and not a break. And good that it wasn't a head. Although I maybe had a helmet and stuff, so if it did hit your head, you would have been okay. But thankfully, it's relatively minor to what it could have been. But
Absolutely.
man, I hate to hear that, and it sounds like the driver was very much in the wrong there. I don't know if I don't know why my head is automatically going here. It's only because I remember people asking me about this when I had my accident, and I never even thought about it. Is there any room for prosecution in that regard? Like, the fact that you're potentially missing days at work, like your shoulder, you need that to be able to do your physio work particularly, but even like typing on your keyboard, bits and pieces like that. I don't know if you have any rights.
I don't know. I really don't know with that. It did cross my mind, but the guy, I think, I have no idea what the situation was, because it was definitely, he was on the left. I was already, like, in the middle / 3/4 of the way over the roundabout at that point. So it was either a case of he wasn't looking and, just kind of mowed me down, or I don't know what else. So I kind of, good thing on his part was he did stay throughout the entire process. And you could see that he was shaken up afterwards, and that he was quite, yeah, it'd shaken him up. So I'm I don't think I would prosecute anyway, even though it might cost. I mean, the great thing is that I've come home now, and I've immediately emailed all of my clients, and I said, look, hey, I'm going to be a bit late in getting back to you, but I will get back to you all, because fortunately it doesn't, my mind is fine. I can type with my right hand, so it doesn't impact that. And I've already spoken with my sort of boss at the clinic, and we're just going to see how that goes. So fortunately, hopefully it won't impact me too much financially. And like I said, I don't think there would be anything to gain in this particular instance from doing anything like that.
It makes me think of, you're going to get a phone call. This used to happen all the time, didn't it? You get a phone call and be like, have you been in an accident in the last whatever number of months? Blah, blah, blah. And they just try and walk you through this thing. And obviously, you and me probably just hang up immediately when this happens. Yeah. But yeah, it makes me think of that. But I certainly think if you were to miss days off work and it was to hit you financially, like I don't know. And I know how you'll be feeling from just, I know you'll be doing great in terms of focusing on what you can control. We can still train many other muscles really, really well and effectively, and we'll absolutely manipulate your training to be able to do that, still make this time incredibly productive. But at the same time, I know you'll be pissed at the fact that this is going to mean that I don't know how long that recovery process will be and how long you can't load that shoulder, but it's time out of the gym training, well, that whole left side for a while, I guess.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, it crossed my mind, but I immediately tried to block it out, because I just know it's not a helpful thing to think about what I could be doing or what might be or anything like that. The only thing that's going to help me now is like, right, what can I do right now? And the way that I'm trying to see it as well is that something that I'm always doing or saying to people is that these sorts of things can be opportunities sometimes, and it doesn't necessarily have to hold you back. And similarly to your knee over these past couple of weeks, even though you haven't been able to train the way that you'd want to train, you've still been able to train in some way. And, I think it's just, hey, this is a part of life. Like, we were in a similar sense, it's like what we were talking about Ada last week. It's just like, it's so shit, but it is at the end of the day a part of life. So we've just got to try to keep moving forwards.
Yeah, it's things like that. I actually said it to Charlotte in regards to Ada. And thank you, actually. I had loads of people reach out to me being like, hey, I understand they're a dog parent or what have you, and they totally understand how I must be feeling, or they can only imagine how crushing it is. But it's funny you mentioned that, because the thoughts that come to mind, I know I said to Charlotte, like, the pain of this doesn't feel like it was even worth having her in the first place, almost. Like, I was almost like, do I even want to have another dog? Like, I can't even think about that right now. Like, it's a huge amount of pain. And of course, that's a silly thought to have. But it's similar to you. Like, with this, you could be like, should I never cycle again? And like, I should train from home so I can control every factor. Like, you have to live life at some point, right? Yeah. It's the same with me with flying. Like, the thing I hate about it most is being out of control. But if I never flew, I'd never experience life.
Yeah.
So it is just as you said, and I'm glad that that's the way you're kind of viewing it. But at the same time, like, I think it's probably, at least my perspective on this is, I don't know if people would argue differently, and you might even, Mike, but I think sometimes just letting out like the frustration or the tears, and that is a healthy thing to do short term.
Yeah.
So it's like I did it a lot initially with Ada, and now I haven't cried for like over a week now, which is good. I'm sure it will happen, but yeah, I think you should allow yourself, if you are feeling a certain way about it, like, not that you want to punch a wall or something because you make it worse, but like, let out some frustration and then be like, okay, now on to the productive path.
Yeah. At the moment, I feel actually sometimes when I think about it, I feel a bit aggressive, in the sense that like, it's kind of motivating me to want to do something. And I think the thing that I've just got to talk to people like you about is keep me objective, because I know that's one thing that I can struggle with, is getting a bit too wrapped up in my emotions. And I'll just be like, oh, I'm gonna do this. Like, I do a decision that my rational brain would say like, no, Mike, you're not doing that. Like, if I was to say something to my client, or again, like, logically, I might do something, but sometimes my emotion just gets the better of me. And so having people like yourself in my corner just during this time, just to kind of like keep me even keeled, yeah, it's just going to be so valuable.
Is there anything specifically that's come to mind that you've thought about?
Well, it's even stuff like tomorrow. It's like, I'm going to try and walk to the gym, even if I have to hobble to the gym. I'm not medically fit probably to drive at the moment, but if I have to hobble to the gym and do some one-arm bicep curls and one-arm chest press and some one-arm leg press, I'm going to do it. But then again, in the back of my head, I'm like, Mike, your ankle's swollen and you can't put pressure through your left ankle and your left leg. What would you say to a patient? And it's like, yeah. And it's those other things like, hey, I literally trained yesterday. Are you realistically, if your nutrition is on point and your sleep's on point, are you realistically going to lose anything in the next day or so? No, of course not. And it's just those sorts of things I've just got to have that internal dialogue with myself.
Yeah, I actually don't know the specific data off the top of my head, but we have pretty good literature surrounding. And actually, we talked about muscle memory just last week. Yeah. But even losing muscle, it takes a while when you're eating at maintenance calories to even worry about losing muscle. So that wouldn't even be a thought like that I would consider of a concern for you. It's like we actually have really good data that one, losing muscle short term, and I think it's a matter of weeks you can have with resistance training and not worry about losing muscle. With high enough protein and maintenance calories. And then also the muscle memory effect in terms of like, hey, it's going to come back in a third of the time, as we kind of talked about last time, and you're going to have everything, all your ducks in a row. So it's kind of keeping that perspective. But at the same time, like I can understand why you have that thought of, I want to go to the gym and do what I can. And at the same time, I do think there's something to that in that if you could do it without causing more problems and pain and everything, if you could walk comfortably, you had the time, it wasn't going to be a stressor, then I think just the mental relief of being able to go train would be of benefit, but probably not tomorrow. Maybe by Saturday, Sunday, you might be in a position to.
Yeah. And it's just in some senses, so my bike has been completely smashed. So the bike's gone.
You should pay for your new bike, Mike.
Yeah, that's true. I could pay for a new bike, a new little red flash or something.
Unless you have insurance on it, but still, you maybe don't even need to claim your insurance.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so there's that. But yeah, unfortunately,
and your headphones. Sorry,
headphones.
And your headphones.
Yeah, and yeah. So those sorts of things to consider. But yeah, it's otherwise, if it's not a great idea to drive, it's probably going to be a 40-minute walk without a bike. So, yeah, we'll see. But like I said, it's probably not a wise idea. And actually, in some senses, it's probably good mental training a little bit for me not to do it a little bit. Just be okay with that. But similarly, on a slightly different note, what you were saying is like how it could be a slightly good thing as well. It's a balancing act. So, like you said, if it makes you feel mentally better for doing some movement and, but making sure you get that balance right between doing a little bit and what you can and what's appropriate, but then not taking it too far. And again, not letting your emotions get carried away with you.
Yeah, it's that ever balancing act of just the immediate example that comes to mind is like going on vacation or holiday, and whether or not you train or you don't, or you track a certain amount or you don't, it's very individual, context dependent, and ultimately you just have to find that right balance for you in terms of what's like, weigh up the pros versus cons and navigate that how you can. So definitely for someone like yourself who's on the side of wanting to do things, probably being uncomfortable and pushing yourself and forcing yourself almost not to is the smarter choice. And it comes back to that saying of Alberto Nunez, talks about kind of one rep can't make you, but it can break you, which is the same. You can apply that like one session, 1 week can't make you, but you could really set yourself back if you're not careful. Out of interest, do you know the recovery timeline that you're expecting on the shoulder? Would you have any idea of when you might be able to load it again?
So I've got an appointment at the fracture clinic on Saturday. So because they didn't give me any specific details about, they said, so where your humerus goes into the socket or the acetabulum, basically the head of the humerus is what I fractured. Now, sometimes it can be either 1-2-part or multiple fractures. Fortunately, it's just a 1-part fracture, so I think it's a relatively simple fracture. So hopefully the timeframes should be relatively quick. Hopefully we're talking like maybe, could even be 4 to 6 weeks, maybe. Okay. But I think the scan is going to give us a bit more information, a bit more kind of, details on potential timelines, etc. And that is another thing to consider. It's like you want to do what you can, but you definitely don't want to get in the way of biological healing. And
Yes.
sometimes for some limbs or some injuries, you do just need to aggressively offload it for a little time to just allow that healing process to take
Yeah.
place.
Yeah, and the tough thing is because it's the shoulder that does impact all of that like upper body side. Like it's not just lateral raises, it is any pulling, any pressing. So that just has to be deloaded. My immediate thoughts go to, and I'm sure you've already thought about this, Mike, is a specialization for lower body and training your right side at kind of maintenance
Mm,
levels to not kind of create too much of an imbalance. Because I imagine if it's weeks, it probably wouldn't be an issue to like hit that side pretty aggressively, but mostly a specialization for lower body, and then let's keep the right side going because that'll also help maintain the left side. I've forgotten what that's called, but it has that kind of effect on the other side. And it's not going to be long enough that you create like a crazy imbalance by training one side and not the other. And there's no point not doing maintenance volume at least for the right side there. That's where my
totally.
head goes. I don't know if you have any thoughts. Where did your head go?
Well, I was even so the good thing is that I can flex and extend my elbow. So I was even thinking to get some BFR cuffs and do some
Right.
arm work with the BFR. It's just shoulder movement. Like at the moment, like I can't move my shoulder without pain. So it's just going to be the side delt and you know pressing work for a tiny bit of time. So, but yeah, I was thinking exactly the same as you. Specialization for legs. Hopefully a bit of BFR arm work, and then hopefully as things improve, go from there.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, the great thing with BFR as well, because I'd be thinking, oh, arm work, the shoulder's still working for stability, but when you're using BFR, you use such light loads that, man, your muscles are strong enough to keep your humerus in place in that, and you can be careful enough about that. So that's cool. At least
Mhm.
then, yeah, you can definitely keep the arms going, and yeah, we can get back on top of the muscle memory effect for that side again. Oh man, super frustrating. I'm really upset for you. That's just for so many reasons. It's just nothing you could have done any differently. And yeah, hopefully, man, no doubt, actually, we'll look back by the end of this year, certainly, or in a couple of months, maybe not a couple of months, maybe 3 months. Certainly by the end of the year, you'll be like, oh, that I forgot about it. I'm back at my all-time best at this stage.
Yeah, definitely. And there's still things to, I can still do a great job with improving how consistent I am with my sleep, how consistent I am with my nutritional practices and things like that. So there's always things we can keep refining. It's essentially about pivoting rather than trying to do the same things. And then again, similarly with your knee, it's like, right, when the time is right, when you can go back to the previous way, then right, we do that. But again, we also don't necessarily be impatient. When the time is right, we go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Any other updates on your end, or is that the major update for you?
Yeah, do you know what I really wanted to talk about? So until this happened today, the main thing that I was going to update people on was I was supposed to be judging at the MPA Northern this weekend.
Oh,
So the MPA have got their Northern competition, which was the show that I won when I competed. So it's always quite
you
a
earned your
fond
pro card,
memory.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, but unfortunately now I can't go. So, but it'll be good. It's a great show. It's one of those venues where it's not massive, but they've got great lighting and it's a great stage.
I think
So
you got
it's
some of
just
your best
cool.
shots from your season. I know. I just always think of your most muscular shot. I think I use it as the thumbnail for this actually because I'm just like
Yeah.
that shot is just epic. Oh, that's a shame that you can't go up there, man. That's quite a journey for you though, right?
Yeah, so it's a 3 hour journey. It's in Penistone, Yorkshire. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's a big trek, and I just wouldn't be, you know, it's just not worth it. I don't think I can. It would be like, yeah, I don't think I could
it's
manage
the
it really.
stress. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I totally get that, and I've no doubt they'll understand. But that's a shame that you won't be able to do that. It'll be interesting to see the competitors and who wins it this time round and gets earns their pro card. I don't think I'd really seen the MPA talking about it that much, but I guess social media is like you can't pick and choose what shows up on your feed. So I also don't see a lot. I see the WNBF posts all the time, probably because I'm judge for them. I tag them a lot, so on and so forth. I'm obviously a pro with them, whereas I don't see like the BNBF. I see the UKDFBA quite a bit. I think it's because I maybe interact a little bit more with their stuff somehow. But anyway, just hopefully it's a good show, and
Yeah,
it's a shame you can't be there.
yeah, absolutely. But I'm not talking about me anymore. How's this last week been going for you?
So been fine. It's just been like a slow kind of grind a little bit with training at the moment. I've just finished, I think, actually week 16. So I'm into like a week 17 of this block. There has been some rotations, which has helped allow me to keep going. So like some modifications, like obviously to leg training that had to take place. I have rotated a few exercises here and there with upper body, just to like navigate some of the discomfort within my joints and things. But I generally I feel very adapted, and it's probably you get to this point, Mike, where you just feel very adapted to training incredibly hard, basically zero RER and everything, sometimes failure on some stuff. Maybe you're at one RER where you didn't intend to be, but you progressed on the exercise from the last week. But like doing more than this wouldn't be much fun. Like I get to the end of like 6 sets for delts, and I'm just like, yeah, I feel like maybe my muscles could do more, but I just, like we said before, I don't feel excited to do any more for that. I need to go to my next exercise. But I've hit some like all-time PRs on some lifts. Like today, I'm almost maxing out this Cybex Eagle press in the gym, which I've never been even close to. So that's really exciting. Yeah, I think some of the, because I'm so deep into the Mesocycle, we've also talked about this within our check-ins. Previously, our Mesocycles might have been 6 weeks on average, maybe 5-6 weeks. And then you maybe make some exercise rotations at that point. Normally it's compound lifts somewhat stay steady, but isolations would rotate maybe quite a bit. Whereas now when I'm going for like 16 weeks, I need some maybe freshness here or there, which is why I think I've injected a few different exercises. So one change I made this week is I've been running that belt squat barbell bench over row. I think I was actually using it for the majority of prep as well. So I've been running it for freaking ages. Yeah. I've got really strong at it, but I just wanted some novelty from like a psychological aspect. And I was like, right, I'm going to go to a barbell. And that's why I ended up posting on my story. Just I'm bringing the barbell back in. It just felt nice to do something that's fundamentally exactly the same in many ways, but it's just nice to have a bit of change. And I also think that's smart from a fatigue management perspective, just from if you're consistently beating the same areas over and over again through the same kind of resistance profiles and everything, I could see an overuse kicking in. So even if you're not needing like a systemic deload, you're doing a bit of a Mena-Henselman's approach where you're using like muscle-specific deloads, or even just you're not deloading, you're just rotating out an exercise that's maybe got stale or is starting to feel a bit niggly after many months of running it, then I don't think that's a bad move to make. So yeah, that's just some things that are happening. But yeah, training is just, yeah, I feel good with it. The worst thing this week has been sleep. That's majorly because of Ada. So yeah, I think I maybe said it last time. Did I talk about the fact she did chemo, and then we have to be careful of her bodily fluids? Yeah, so I think I was getting a bit too concerned about that. I kind of spoke to the oncologist. They were like, you don't have to be like really anal about it. It was getting to the point where I was like, I don't want to be so close to her, because if she gets some of this on me, I don't want to cause myself a problem. But especially after like 72 hours, the risks are incredibly limited. So, and she's also been leaking less. And yeah, so anyway, but last night she did have diarrhea, which is a symptom of going through the chemo and everything. Thankfully, it was just one night worth. Actually, not last night, the night before, she had diarrhea like all through the night. And that just disrupts. Obviously, you have to like take her out, try and get her to go out in the back garden. She won't. So then I had to take her for like a mini walk around the block, like at 6 a.m. I was like, oh, I could just get up now. But I was like, no, I really want another hour of sleep. So yeah, it's just impacted that a little bit, but nothing major. And the great news is, I always say this, like, to clients, and I probably said it to you, Mike, you give the body the opportunity for sleep, it will eventually take it, and it will take higher quality when it needs like that extra recovery. So last night Ada was completely fine. She slept with me upstairs. She wasn't like, she sometimes like shakes, like she gets like tremors, which is again associated with the treatment and things. but she didn't last night, and I just was fine, and I slept much better. So that's been quite nice. So dealing with it fine, and yeah, thankfully the heat is not an issue for me really, because I have the air conditioning. The only problem I have is sometimes I wake up and I'm like freaking cold, and then I turn it off, and then I wake up and I'm like, I'm sweating, so I have to turn it back on. So it's not ideal, but it's definitely better than just being like sweating through the entire night. So I don't think anything else has really happened so much. Just taking every week as it comes with Ada. And the worst thing, I think I maybe mentioned this too, is she's on these steroids and they reduced her dose, but her appetite is wild. You know, she's very food focused as a dog. She, like, Charlotte eats her dinner, and Ada, if Charlotte stops eating, Ada will stop barking. And then even as she's eating, she'll bark at her, like, aggressively because she wants food. Thankfully, she doesn't do it to me. Somehow I get away with it. But when I take her on walks, she is sniffing the ground constantly, trying to find any little thing she can eat. So I feel bad for her because her appetite is clearly just like out of control. And we're feeding her more than usual. I'm giving her like more food than usual. But also, they don't really want us giving her a bunch of different foods and things because that can impact knowing whether it's the cancer that's kind of flaring it up or if it's a certain food that's flared it up. So I have to be careful with that. And she has heaps of energy generally. The heat keeps her a bit subdued. She's like back there, just lying splat. So splat, actually, if you can see it.
Yeah.
So yeah, anyway, that's an update on her. Otherwise, yeah, things are good. Highlight of the weekend was Colin turned pro. So people who follow me on Instagram, yeah, he turned pro with the OCB, which was just awesome because as I knew when I started with him, he had that, you know, when you just see someone, you're like, you have the potential to go pro. Like you just see they have the level of muscularity, they have the shape, and he always had the potential. He just needed like to get into shape, like the pro level condition. And so, yeah, he got into the best shape he's ever got into, which was really cool. And we definitely peaked better this time too, which was helped by him being leaner as well. Considering he brought a child into the world during this prep and running a full-time business, he's done incredibly well. I think his partner, forgive me if I'm wrong, Colin, but I'm pretty certain his partner also competed that season too. So both of them in competition prep during the time of bringing their daughter into the world. That's pretty hardcore. So, but yeah, that was awesome that he turned pro.
Yeah, I mean, massive shout out to Colin if you're listening. Just like huge. I don't know. Just on that note, I wonder if like when you are dieting, it kind of focuses your brain a little bit more. And I don't know whether in some ways it's zeroed them in maybe a tiny bit more. I don't know. Do you kind of know what I mean?
Yes, but I don't think that's good for children. A comp prep brain, I don't think is good for children. Just because of the apathy that takes place of you. You just don't have that you don't have the capacity to love like you normally do. You just don't have that bandwidth. Because the only way I've experienced that is through Ada, and I know how much I just became apathetic towards her and almost like annoyed. So I don't think that happened I don't think Colin got annoyed with his daughter. Well, he probably did, but not to the same degree because it's obviously like a human and a child and the same thing. But I don't imagine he had the same love and care as he would if he was a well-fed individual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's a tough thing to do.
And it's something that, you know, until you have one or until you experience it, you probably can't just fully relate to it. So, you know, I really just can't say anything other than like, I genuinely take my hats off to the people who have children. Yeah. Colin, like my metaphorical hat is tipped.
I don't think I have any other news. The only thing that comes to mind is, I can't remember what federation it was. Was it the PCA? They had a natural show just on the weekend, I believe. And the reason I'm thinking of it is because there was a guy that won the overall and won classic. I forget his name, but he's got quite a big social media following.
Is it Australia, was it? Australia?
No, it's UK based. AJ Morris competed within that show. But yeah, the guy that won the classic.
Two bros.
It might have been two bros. I think it might have been, actually. which I obviously competed in that, not that specific show, but I've done a two bro show before, which yeah, I didn't love it, but I don't know. It seems to be mixed a little bit.
Mm.
I haven't seen that many reviews from that. But anyway, the guy that won the classic, like you'll see his physique, and actually, I need to probably bring it up because he just
Yeah, bring it
looked
up.
absolutely absurd. I don't know if I can bring it up on my screen because uh, you know what my issues are with I'm on different profiles or whatever it is. But if
Yeah.
people, the reason I'm bringing him up because there was a Natty or not whole debacle about him,
Uh,
and I thought I'd be able to see it because uh, let's have a look. So the Natty News guys actually posted about it as well.
ah.
So people should be following Natty News over on Instagram if they're not. Shout out to the boys.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah, he is called. Where is he? Oh, is he not tagged in it? So Greg Doucette did a video on like, is he a fake Natty or whatever? Because he got some blood work done, and Greg basically went through the blood work, and I don't know blood work well enough to know if Greg's assessment of that was correct or not. So he's called at Prosper Fitness.
Oh, at Prosper Fitness.
Yeah, on Instagram, and just a crazy physique. And on his Instagram, he has 884,000 followers. He says he's lifetime natural. So
Uh,
he's not claiming like, I mean, it's something to put lifetime natural in your bio, right? Not a lot of people do that. And so anyway, he did some blood work for Greg Doucette, and Greg Doucette did like this whole breakdown of the blood work and basically said, hey, I don't think you're a natural. I think you've actually taken a bunch of stuff in the past, which he theoretically, I think, could have, because I believe the two bros have the kind of natural ruling standard of, what is it, like 3 years or something that you have to have been drug free. So he could have taken in the past, been off 3 years, and legitimately competed in a natural, quote unquote, federation because he was natural by their standards. The only reason I bring it up is it's just so funny how like these things just consistently, it's just always going to be there within the fitness industry, isn't it? Like Natty or not, it's never going to die off. It's just so funny to me that people are so obsessed with it, because it just comes back to many of the things we've spoken about and often speak about in terms of like that stoic philosophy, which is the word I was looking for previously. Just like control what you can control. You can't control, like, and we can never also know. Like the only person that knows if he's natty or not is him. Well, maybe his drug dealer, if there is one. Who knows? But you know, like that's the only person that actually knows. But if you look him up, Prosper Fitness, like crazy physique, and that was the first show he ever did, and he just won everything. He's also got an incredible beard, but yeah, it's just a physique that,
jealous of.
yeah, and it's a physique that even enhanced guys would not be able to achieve. But part of that is his genetics. Just he has very good bone structure, and insertions and everything along those lines. And obviously works really hard in the gym too. That's part of it. But yeah, fake natties, I get it, because fake natties, I think, suck for multiple reasons, i.e. like assuming he is a fake natty, he took that placing away from someone else. The drug testing should be better, therefore. I'm not saying he is or not. I'm just saying, like, if someone is competing who isn't natural in a natural fed and then takes that opportunity away from someone else, that sucks. But also, there's now the whole marketing, right? So, like, he is I think, an online coach, probably selling products somewhat related to his physique. And, like, that becomes a sales pitch, right? If you're a lifetime natty and you've got that physique, you must know what you're doing and not be like abusing drugs to have got that. So, and that's why even people like Goob, do you know Goob? He calls out people on Instagram for Photoshop. People photoshopping their physiques. So yeah, you're way out of it. It's fine. But similarly there, it's like if people are using Photoshop on their results and their physique, it's like, well, you didn't actually achieve that look, and you're using that as like a sales pitch. It's like our kind of product is our physique in many ways as coaches. It just ends up being that way. Anyway, I just thought I'd bring it up just because it was the thing that I think I watched. I think I saw Greg's video yesterday, and I was just like, oh man, it's just so funny that these things keep sticking around, and they are just a huge time suck and waste of time thinking about.
Totally. And I was curious, so before you look at the kind of, debates about natty or not, and you were just to look at him as a physique, what immediately kind of comes to your mind?
Just
Like,
impressive.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
For me now, that's what, like, I don't know if past me definitely wouldn't. Like, maybe, uh, probably 10 years ago, it would need to be now. For the last 10 years, I've had a pretty good understanding of what's achievable naturally and that there
Mm,
are freaks in this world. So I don't look at his physique and be like, there is no way in hell he's natural. Rationally, like when you think about, he is either like a Michael Jordan of natural bodybuilding, in and amongst the best natural bodybuilders out there, or he's a fake natty.
mhm.
Like when you think about it that way, if you just look at laws of averages, like he is more likely to be using than not in many ways, because he is way better than anyone could ever hope to be who is of an average standard. And I'd never be able to get close to that level of muscularity and like condition, and let alone the shape and everything. But I take people generally at their word, and he isn't obscene in terms of muscularity. Where like I look at like a like Babacar, like it's not like Babacar's. I don't know. I don't know like difference in muscularity between the two, but Babacar looks ridiculous too, and many don't think he's natural. And I legitimately think he is. I've reasons to believe that. So yeah, that's where my head generally goes. Like just like wow, like damn,
Yeah,
hat off to you type of deal.
me too. And I think something which I really like, which I think's a really nice reframe, is most of us have heard of the saying like comparison is the thief of joy, but it doesn't have to be. It's only comparison is only the thief of joy if you use it from a perspective of envy. You could use comparison as inspiration. So it's like you could look at his physique and use it as inspiration, not to be exactly the same, but to be the best version of yourself. And I think that that's where we've got to come from. Like, try to take out the fact that what might or might not be, but actually it's like, yeah, like that is an amazing physique. I'm going to do everything that I can to be the best that I can be, not an exact replica. And I think
Yeah.
that's, if we can kind of have that little reframe, I think that's more useful for us.
Yeah, I think that is just, it's a really mature reframe. And I think it's really hard for people to swallow, but it's just matter of fact. It's actually so funny. I literally looked this up today, and there is research indicating, I believe, and I'd have to check my notes, but it's somewhere, and I might do a post on this, but like 50 to 80%, I believe, of your like physical results are determined by genetics. Like over 50% of your results are determined by genetics.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, I mean, then you've got maybe close to 50% in your control. And like I say, it's like the hand that you're dealt with, and then it's how you play with that hand that ultimately determines things. But like so much is out of your control. It's like you could literally work your absolute ass off and get nowhere close to someone else because they have that 50% above you. And I've certainly had it with some clients who are maybe more or less genetically well endowed, and some of them get better results despite their efforts, put it that way. And I have others who they put in as much as they possibly could into it, but they simply aren't going to get the same level of result because they haven't been dealt that amazing hand. But at the end of the day, we all do this for ourselves, and we can all better ourselves and be the best version of ourselves. And it's not that deep. Like it is initially like you have that. If you look at it at a very surface level, like comparison is the thief of joy. But if you think about it for a while, you just think about where have I come from, where have I gone to, what other good things can I do for others? Like, it's incredible. I think it's person that comes to mind just when I talk about this is Joe Jeffries from
Oh,
the
yeah.
Physique Collective.
Yeah.
He just always says he's like in worse shape than all of his clients. And I always just think about that, and I'm just like, it's kind of cool to be able to be like,
Yeah.
he's tried his absolute best because he's loved bodybuilding, but he kind of attests he's never going to be the best bodybuilder. So he just focuses on making the best bodybuilders. And that's often, and we've spoken about it a ton, right? It's not the biggest, most jacked guy in the gym, definitely isn't more, he is not likely to be the most knowledgeable person on how to get jacked, because inevitably he has great genetics and hasn't had to try as hard as many other individuals. More than likely, it's not always that case, right? You do get those people who are in incredible shape where they've good genetics but not amazing genetics and have put in everything, or even at the elite, right? You kind of have to have those amazing genetics and also have the hard work and the knowledge about how to produce results. But what's the saying, that the best coaches aren't always the best kind of players type of deal.
Exactly. And I 100% put you and Eric Helms in that category because I still genuinely believe, I've not seen another example, but I 100% believe that for me and what I've experienced, there is no one else in the natural bodybuilding community who has taken themselves as far as you have from where you've got to where you are now
I
and where you'll
appreciate that.
probably go. Like, and for me, that's more inspirational. And I think that's what people should look for. It's not, it's not going to change some people, but to me, like,
I
yeah.
appreciate that a
So
lot.
that's amazing. And one other point that I just wanted to mention on what you said is with what you said about that 50 to 80% determined by genetics, I think that's all the more reason why we should sometimes just do this for the love, do things that we enjoy, and just love what you do because yeah, like life is too short. And like you said, there's no point hating what you do and it's not gonna make a massive difference, so you might as well just enjoy what you do. And fortunately for us, we just happen to love what we do, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it makes me. Oh, I can't think. Oh, it was in Naruto. You might even know the quote, but he said something about how, like, obviously his whole thing is believe it. I want to become Hokage and everything. But he said there was a quote he said at some moment where it was just like what if you don't become it? Like what happens if like you don't achieve the goals you wanted to? And he was like, I don't care. I'm putting everything into this, and like knowing that I've done that is what actually brings me like efficacious joy and pleasure, is knowing I gave it my all. And hey, if I don't make it, I don't make it, but at least I know I tried. I can't
Mm,
remember the specific quote, but there was a moment he said that. It sounds like something he would say, right?
yeah, I can't remember the exact quote either, but I definitely think he said it at some point, and I can't remember when. But yeah, oh, man,
But you're
Naruto.
right though. You are right though, in terms of, I just literally made a post now where it's like, as we know from the research, you get the majority of your gains from the first few sets. After that, it's hugely diminishing returns. And so just showing up and being consistent long term and adhering, and therefore, you mentioned enjoying the process, that's 90% of the battle. And that's what the vast majority of people should focus on, not really like people like us who are looking for that tiny little bit of every maximal gain because we're trying to be competitors at this, and so it's worth that investment. We're also in the industry, but for a lot of our clients it's not worth investing what we invest, and it could just lead to burnout. So sometimes I have to pull clients back where I'm just like, hey, yeah, we might be able to do X, Y, and Z, but is it truly worth the trade-off to you and your life? It's probably not. So let's just hold where we're at. It's going great. Let's like accept what we've got. So yeah, anyway, it's just kind of confirming your message.
Yeah, I love it. And again, finishing that off, like I think it's okay to say that you like if if you don't have that like inbuilt drive to, maybe compete or step on stage, that's fine. You don't have to kid yourself to be someone you're not. Like if you just want to, you know, train 3 times a week and then maybe do a bit of a CrossFit class or play a bit of football, that there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. Don't again, and this comes back to again probably comparison where you're trying, maybe someone else is trying to be someone that they're not, and I think no, just love what you, be okay with just loving what you do.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
that's, I mean, that's what I see our role as coaches is to get the most from our clients' efforts, so efficient results, and get them loving it. And by chance, often they love it and so want to invest more and get even more results. But sometimes they don't, and they're just like, hey, I just love that I'm investing more or less time than I was previously, but seeing more results because you've just analyzed my process and got it into a place that's better. And as the saying we always come back to is bodybuilding fundamentally, even for us, Mike, and it just looks different person to person, needs to complement your life. It can't take over. Otherwise, like you're going to burn out and it's not going to be sustainable for you.
Totally. And I've definitely, yeah, I can definitely think back to, 10, 15 years ago when it was this all consuming thing. And that ties in with me being a lot more emotionally insecure and immature. But now, it's definitely come full circle. So, and it's also just an opportunity to, like, I still know there's areas where I want to improve and get better, such as just exposing myself to eating out more, which we've spoken about in our check-ins. Like there's still that element of unfamiliarity for me. And so, but just knowing that and repeating those sorts of things to myself, like, I know that's, an area for me to grow. So yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Should we get some questions, Mike?
Yeah. Can we just make one shout out to
Yeah.
Brandon Kemper and Daniel Chappelle, who won, I think it was the NPC something?
Not Chappelle.
Not Chappelle, sorry.
I don't know his
Daniel.
last name, but not Chappelle.
No, it's not Chappelle. It begins with a C though, so I'm sorry I'm
Yeah.
blanking on it. But it was super cool to see both of those guys. I think, did they get their pro card? Or was it just they won the overall? I think they
Don't
won the
remember
overall.
seeing pro cards, but yeah, I did see them winning overalls.
Yeah.
Both looked obscenely good.
Yeah. And it just makes me think like Australia, if you're in the UK or kind of Europe, like Australia just is like, what is this monster? Like there's this whole new world, of like so many people and so many amazing physiques. It's just like, wow.
It's
Yeah.
interesting how competitive the Australian scene can be. Like they've got some incredible competitors over there.
Yeah. You just kind of almost wish there was I think the WNBF Worlds is getting better, so because it's so, it captures so many athletes, but it still doesn't capture everyone. And you just wish like, oh, I want a Brandon Kempter on stage with a Babacar, with a, Raymond or whatever. You want to just bring them all together.
Yeah, it makes me actually Brandon. He's a bit of a Benjamin Schuster type of physique, isn't he? Like
Yeah.
a bit taller, but like very shredded, like unbelievable condition, good flowing physique. Yeah, it's I'd be interested to see those two next to each other. But yeah, wild stuff. I know Brandon, it's hard for him because he has to do earlier shows in the season because he has lots of competitors later in the year. So I could definitely see that being tough. But yeah, you do want like a what's it called, like a Royal Rumble, the best natural bodybuilders in the world all coming together. But it's a tough one to get.
Yeah.
But I think actually, funny enough, on Chappelle, Andrew Chappelle, which is probably where you're getting Chappelle from, right? I don't know. But I think he's doing a guest posing at the Irish WNBF show in September, I believe that is. So anyway, it looks like he's getting lean for that at least.
Do you know if he's competing or not?
I don't know. Maybe he's doing a bit of a ghost prep. I'm not sure. So that'll be interesting. But I definitely have to bring Brandon on again to talk about his prep once he's finished it. But I know he's got some more shows. I think he's like got a WNBF Taiwan or something coming up, maybe something like this. Anyway, now on to questions.
Let's go on to questions.
Cool.
Sorry, had to get that one in there.
No, that's all good. So shall I ask you the first question from Gourmet Pool? Says,
Yes.
how often do you do mock peaks / loads with your clients in lieu of regular refeeds to test different carb loading strategies for show days?
So, to be totally honest, I haven't got an awful lot of experience in this nature. So I can't say that I've done it an awful lot, but I definitely would aim to do this maybe once or twice because I just think that gives really, really valuable data. And using that opportunity, even if it's not necessarily, contest lean, but just sometimes maybe having that opportunity to pay attention to the details. So if you've got someone who has gone through maybe more of a, general fat loss phase, but they've gotten decently lean and you've maybe you utilize some refeed days, just paying attention to how they respond and just paying attention to maybe their reactions to certain things, because it might be that they report back to you in the check-in that, oh, I ate this and I felt super bloated or I felt super, unwell or whatever. I think sometimes just paying attention to those nuances, even though it's not an exact reflection, it can still give you valuable indications for maybe later down the line.
For sure. Yeah, I think in regards to me, I pretty much always use refeeds now with clients because I'm just sold on them being sufficiently beneficial to be almost a requirement in the final weeks and months leading into shows. So I don't really have situations where I'd be in lieu of it. If I was, though, I would probably use the deload prior to competing where I likely brought in some refeed days or had a diet break and used that as my kind of assessment. without that, I just would not be, without any other data, I would just not use an aggressive peaking approach. So I would definitely not be using a rapid backload. There'd be unlikely to be a backload at all. It might be more of a front load. It might be more of a, unlikely you've got time for a progressive linear load. If they haven't been having refeeds, it kind of tells me that they're a bit behind. But I'd probably be using a front or mid load to then have days to assess within that week of how they're responding to things. So yeah, that's my answer there.
Do you sometimes find clients struggle with refeeds sometimes in terms of I don't know, they don't know when to have them, or they, I don't know, maybe kind of in the initial phases they're a little bit, they need kind of guidance with how to have it, in terms of if there's someone where they cope very well with just similar calories each day, every day, but for those reasons that you mentioned, you feel refeeds would be beneficial. Do you ever find that maybe some of those types of people struggle in the initial phases?
I would say for that person that doesn't tend to, who likes similarity day to day and doesn't necessarily want the refeed early on, if they gave me that feedback, I'd be like, cool, we don't need to have a refeed just yet. But it would be something that is specific towards competing, and therefore I'd introduce it maybe a month out from stage and be like, hey, I know you generally like the sameness day to day, but now it's necessary for us to give you this purposeful planned increase in food. And then once you give it to them as like, hey, this is having an objective of maybe slowing the rate of loss, also giving your body an opportunity to deal with this amount of carbohydrates, i.e. if you kind of abstain from high carbohydrate intakes for a long time and then you suddenly give a ton, the body might not have the enzymes and the capacity to be able to deal with it well. So it's kind of giving the body a chance to deal with that. So you basically give them all the rational, objective reasons why we have to do it. And typically that person is like, I get it. Like, I need to do it. And then you can also be informative about, right, so we're competing on a Saturday, so probably take this like on a Friday, so it's a bit more informative for the weekend. And then you can just talk them through, hey, at this point in prep also, you don't want to be introducing a bunch of new foods, or if you do, make them lower palatable, unlikely to kind of overeat on, and then just assess how you're feeling in terms of digestion on them and that sort of thing. So yeah, if someone presented me with like a fundamental distaste for refeeds like early on, then I just be like, hey, we actually don't need them this early. We don't have to start prep with them. We can introduce them later, but just know that we probably will. I think that's where I would go.
Awesome. Awesome. Right. Love it. Sorry for the slight
no, it's all good.
extension there. So Jojo_Wyndham asks, can you talk about how routine bloods may be affected by bodybuilding? For example, how it might affect your liver or the renal system, kidneys?
I can't. I'm not sufficiently educated within blood work to be able to give any sort of helpful answer here. Even to the point of, if my clients get blood work done, I don't want them to like give me the results and be like, hey, Steve, can you assess this and tell me, like, interpret it for me? It's like, well, that's a whole different skill set. That's literally a doctor should be doing that sort of thing. I can understand why maybe people on the enhanced side need better understanding of those elements, because they're probably getting more routine blood work and they have to know it for themselves as well to kind of make sure everything under the hood is healthy and okay. But for us, like, if you're getting blood work through like a Thriver, which I actually have my kit behind me, I still haven't done it, or you're doing like a Medichecks or whatever, like they have a doctor that reviews your data and will give you feedback, which you can use to interpret. So yeah, I can't really talk through and if anything, in terms of like bodybuilding, like natural bodybuilding, what impact is it having on like liver and renal, those sort of things? It's fundamentally like, it's not really having any large impact, apart from you will probably present with higher like creatinine, that sort of thing, because you're training really hard and you're breaking down like muscle, you have muscle damage, that sort of thing. So that's going to be present. But ultimately, this is, I think, confusing for some people, because there are some supplement companies that have products like a JP, for example, like Jordan Peters. He has a supplement company and they have products in there that are like liver support, kidney support, but that's for enhanced guys, right? Because they need that probably to kind of sustain health. In fact, Ada is on a liver support supplement because of the damaging effects of some of the chemotherapy. We don't need to worry about that because we're not putting those chemicals in ourselves. So, yeah, I guess that's my perspective on it.
Spot on. And it makes me think of how I made a post about sort of bodybuilding and health. And I just feel that health and performance, bodybuilding and health, they are mutually enhancing. And I just feel that, again, if we're doing the majority of things right, I think we can just be confident that what we're doing is promoting our health, and we don't need to worry about, you know, some of those other things. We can be confident in our health. So yeah.
I can see how it can be confusing, though, for sure. It's just, and as it makes me think of, as a slight tangent, it's still on the same thing, but Menno Henselmans did a post. It was basically a study that reported something along the lines of like, amateur bodybuilders have better health than pro bodybuilders. And of course, this is talking about enhanced. And I almost commented it and just put like Team Natty, so then people could like my statement and be like, yeah. And I was like, I don't want to make it about like, you know, Natty are holier than thou type of thing. That's not where I was coming from, but it's like, no wonder, because the pro bodybuilders probably are using more drugs, right? It's like, duh, they're probably not as healthy. So that doesn't stand for natural bodybuilders. Like a pro natural bodybuilder is going to be just in his probably good nick as an amateur, because we're not like using assistance in that sense. Anyway, I'll get to the next question. So Afonso has underscore Puga has asked, how do you know a client is stage ready and able to raise calories to maintenance? Would you still peak in such a condition or situation? Sorry.
So I think firstly, it has to be relevant to the category. So bodybuilding is probably the easiest example, because you want to get as lean as you possibly can. So you want to make sure that you're, you know, seeing the lines of the hamstring. Maybe if you're lucky, maybe if you're seeing lines in your glutes and there is just, you know, minimal body fat, like details, striations in everywhere, at least clear muscle separation. Again, the lines are probably a tiny little bit more nuanced when it comes to other categories like bikini, figure, etc. But overall, that's what you're looking for. And if that at that stage, then again, you can maybe start to bring them back up to maintenance. But I think ultimately, if you're bringing them back up to maintenance, then is that what you'd call, Steve, like almost like a perma-peaked look for a little while? So essentially, you wouldn't need to do a peak on top of that because they are perma-peaked, essentially. So it's only in the situation where a decent amount of time before the competition or before the show, if you are bringing, if they are stage lean at that point and you are as lean as you want to get, right, but we don't want to risk muscle loss or digging any deeper because we don't need to, then right, bring back calories up to maintenance, perma-peaked look, we don't need to worry about a peak week. But if it's not that, and it's like week leading into the show and you haven't done that, then that's when you do your peak week protocol.
Yeah, I think well said. It definitely depends on the category in terms of like when they're stage ready or not. The challenge for bodybuilding is you can almost always be leaner. But as we noticed with your own prep, Mike, we continued to try and get leaner, but we didn't get leaner. We sacrificed size, or at least we maybe got a touch leaner. But, and this exactly happened to me in my last prep. I got leaner, but I also sacrificed my bodybuilding competitiveness because I lost fullness and potentially muscle in various areas. So basically, you either need to then slow the rate of loss even further, and you could already be losing really slow, or you just decide, as we decided with you, Mike, just like, let's start building food up at this point. And that isn't a case of immediately going to maintenance. That's not typically what you tend to do. You would just slowly reduce the deficit and then get them to like a stable sort of body weight, but also look. And you just keep an eye more on the look than the body weight, because at that point, when you're in a perma-peak to look, you aren't necessarily at maintenance all the time, at least. It somewhat depends whether or not you would peak in such a situation, because sometimes you can be kind of building them up, and you might have even, because you're playing with such small numbers at this point and the body is very responsive, they could look like they got a bit softer. You could have almost like spilled them at some point, and then you might have to have a few days of depleting and then build them back up. But ideally, you're kind of babysitting a look, and you don't want to be at this kind of perma-peaked maintenance, metabolic building, progressive linear loading for too long, because it's not something that is maintainable. Like, it's an unsustainable amount of body fat. So to think that you could just hold this forever when the body's like on fire, as it were, it's not realistic. So it is a little bit of like a potential push and pull at times. And yeah, the ideal situation is maybe a month that you can be here and you are in this kind of semi-perma-peaked kind of look. And as you get, but you still, in my eyes, as you get closer to stage, you still get multiple kind of physique updates. You might have some small manipulations to like their carbohydrate intake, and you would still do some of the peaking elements like pulling back stressors, that sort of thing. But in terms of like actual carbohydrate intake, calories, like fluids, that sort of thing, that would be more static. You just more tightly control it towards that week leading into the show, but it wouldn't be your formal, like if someone is in that maintenance kind of perma-peaked metabolic building, whatever terminology we want to use during that phase, reverse diet into like shows. What was I saying? If they are in that phase, you probably wouldn't put them through like your typical like depletion and then like rapid backload or something like that. That's probably not necessary. My brain just went completely blank for some reason on that. So yeah, there's not a one size fits all like easy answer here. It's one of those that you just see with a person, because you might even decide, for example, you might have, in our situation, Mike, we might have seen, okay, we seem to be pushing and you're losing weight and you're getting a bit leaner, but we're sacrificing too much of the rest of your physique. Let's start building food up. And then we might decide, hey, we're in a good spot. Let's try bringing food down again. And then you might see the physique improve at that point. So it's not like a one size fits all just solution to things. But yeah, in an ideal world, you get someone ready about a month out from their most important show. Then you can start reversing their food up slowly over weeks. Often their body starts metabolizing that better. You can deal with more carbohydrates. You get to a very samey look. That's kind of where I try to get to in a peak week when we're not using a rapid backload approach. It's like a consistent look where day to day it's like, hey, we do that, and we get this look. And it's like, right, let's now hold that as best we can leading into the show and replicate that on show day then. And that can work really nicely. I know that was a bit of this is the kind of art, I guess, of peak week, which makes it a bit hard to give precise answers to these sort of questions.
That's exactly what I was thinking as you were saying that. And it reminds me of when Cliff Wilson talks. It's like he can't describe to people what he means.
What's
or
the
what
formula?
He does. He can't. Yeah, exactly. It's like he sees it and then he just, tweaks things, So there is that element of that, which is also, as a coach, it's fun. It's quite fun in some senses. But yeah, hard to explain.
I know, for example, I forget what season it was, but with Dirk, I think it was the 2022 season when I competed as well. Was it 2022 that we competed, or was it 2021?
21.
I can't even. 21, yeah, it's
21.
21. I don't know why 21. I was like, that was COVID, wasn't it? It's like, no, that was like the year when things opened up a bit more. Yeah, 2021. Anyway, I think there was a point him and Bert did a bit of a reverse and like linear load and started getting to that perma-peak look, but maybe they did it a bit too assertively. And I think Dirk described him getting a bit softer and him looking a bit worse. And so they'd kind of learnt from that. And it just gives you an example of where it's not like flawless. I think sometimes people look at that as like the goal and then it's flawless and it just works. You can just maintain and your body just looks amazing all the time. It's like, there's too many variables, and fundamentally the body is just a stressed piece of meat at that point that's very sensitive to any changes and stuff.
Definitely. And again, that's why you try again. This is the only thing that I lean on. I hope I don't sound like a broken record, but again, that's why you got to just not see one season as the final, line in the sand. Hopefully it's something that you're going to enjoy, that you're going to want to do again, which is, as a first-time competitor, that's what our goal should be. And then, right, okay, even though we made mistakes, we've learned from them, so that next time we're going to try a different approach. So always just thinking, right, this is just information that I'm going to be better at next time. with an even better package because you've had time to grow muscle.
Yeah, perfect is pie in the sky thinking, especially during a prep. Like, it's just, you're always learning. Totally. Is it your turn to ask this question
It is
now?
my turn.
Nice.
So, Will Raby _ asks, when doing a toe press for calves on the leg press, I feel like my feet are going to slip. Any tips to help with this? Love the podcast.
Thank you, Will. I appreciate that. This is a tricky one. Because it's not a nice feeling when you feel like your feet are going to slip. Especially when you're using both legs on the leg press and you're using a lot of weight. It might help doing single leg and using less load. That might help just with that element. That might still cause you problems. And feet slipping is quite common. It might not be something you can get round with grippier shoes or anything else. So it might be that the leg press for calf raises might not be the ideal place to do it. I have done leg press calf raises in my leg press, and I do it for a bit of time, and then after a while I'm like, it just doesn't quite work right. Some leg presses just aren't suitable for it for whatever reason. So yeah, I don't have any like hacks, unfortunately, for this sort of thing.
I think all I can suggest is that if it's not too much of an inconvenience, and if you haven't done this already, right, try some different shoes. Try, like, if you've got something like a yoga mat or even a towel that you might be able to put on the leg press that helps give you a little bit of friction or purchase, maybe, like, give them a go if you haven't already. Those would be just the obvious things that I would say to try. And you could even, who knows, you might find that double leg it's slippy, but one leg you're somehow you're able to maintain a bit of stability. I don't know. So if you've exhausted all options for it, then like you said, Steve, it might just be that we have to, find an alternative.
Yeah, it's kind of comes back to, you don't want the limiting factor on an exercise to be anything but that muscle. So if it's the limiting factor is slipping, that's not great. I will say sometimes you can just reset, and you might get like 10 really good reps, and then you are like slipping off, and then you reset and you can get then close to failure. You just have to do these like resets. I think that's okay. A lot of that happens time to time on some calf raises, resetting a little bit. But yeah, nothing else I can think of past that.
No.
Next question is from Teddy Gross _official. He asks, or they ask, in light of the recent per session volume meta-analysis, 2 times frequency with more daily sets versus 3 times frequency with less daily sets, ?
So what is which is superior?
I think he's referring, basically, which would you pick? I think he's talking about, obviously, Jake Remett's meta-analysis where they looked at per session volume.
My biggest thought with this is it's context dependent. So it might be, I've definitely had clients where they prefer a higher frequency split because the actual sessions themselves are shorter. So it's nice for them to go in the gym, have maybe like a 45-minute or an hour session, versus maybe like, a 3 or 4 times per week, but actually they're in there for maybe an hour and a half. So I do think it depends on the individual and the lifestyle. Again, it's not necessary, if the volume's the same, it's what allows you to get it in the highest quality way, which depends on individual and context.
You stole my answer, Mike. I was going to come from like first principles of just like zoom out, whatever allows you to get this done at the highest quality, do that. Because there's a lot of things that go into it, right? Because 3 times a week leg training has its appeal for doing less each time and not being so fatigued. But when you're training legs every other day, it sometimes isn't that sustainable. Put it that way. It starts to grind on you. You've done that like multiple times as well, Mike. Like I've done through, and it's okay for a time and it's kind of enjoyable for a time. But then after a while, you're like, man, sometimes I just want to like hammer my legs and then not come in for a couple of days to train them. At the moment, I'm really enjoying just 2 times a week. That's where I like my sweet spot is. But for other muscles, like I could see myself going back to 3 times a week on back, for example, or at least lats, just to kind of get in that extra bit of volume and not have to maybe do so much back within like a pull session, because oftentimes I'm certainly getting past that for back as a whole. It depends how you want to look at it, but that point of PUOS, the point of undetermined that the sets are doing anything for you, which was like 11 on average for what Jake found. I'm certainly above that for my pull sessions and total back work. So I would consider it there. And yeah, it's one of those, like, whatever allows you to get it done at the highest quality, but also personal preference can also come in as well. And you could try both, which we have. And you could also, there could be no reason where you have to, one's the best all the time. It's, as we mentioned, we liked 3 times a week for a period of time. And then after a while, it kind of starts just wearing on you. You go back to 2. Awesome. You love that for a while. And then you might go back to another. I've actually considered, Mike, I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I will, but like going close to daily calf training. My calves just are fundamentally always recovered, but I can't get over needing to do a lot of sets each time. So I was like, maybe like how I've got it at the moment is like I get up to like 5 sets on quite a few of my calf days. I might just introduce another calf day and just do my reps on that day, just for some stimulus when they're recovered, to just like, again, we're of the maximizers over here. So don't clients listen to this and be like, oh, I have to do that. But it's just like one of those things, you know, I know you've done it before where you're like, I just could do with a touch of extra volume here, but I don't want to do like a ton of straight sets, maybe a bit of my reps or something. It's something I consider, but it's as I always say to you, Mike, when you maybe come to me with these crazy ideas of everything has a cost.
Yeah.
So that's where it's a case of you have to weigh it up whether or not it's going to take away from quality elsewhere. That's where, like, my abs, I could definitely train my abs more with more sets, more frequency, but I don't enjoy training them. And I do find I don't find any ab training not fatiguing. I don't know about you, Mike, but everything is like, it's effort. So it's just, yeah, you can't do it all the time.
No, and it's the hard thing about priorities is you've got to is prioritizing, you know, because if you're doing everything, you're by that definition not prioritizing stuff. And so if you know that there are certain body parts which you want to make sure that they are growing, so like, you know, for me and you both, like, we both want to make sure our chests are getting sufficient, you know, attention, you know, for you, your back, and probably for me, my arms, you know, okay, well, not just the energy, but also the time, you know, is that extra time of doing those sets for abs worth it and potentially taking away from chest, arms, back, or whatever you want to call it? And you've just got to sometimes make that hard decision.
Yeah. Just be happy. Like, I find myself being like, oh, maybe I'll add a bit here. Then I'm like, no, Steve, you're pretty beat up most of the time. Things are going well. Just hold. Be satisfied that you're really pushing, firing on all cylinders. So, yeah, don't break what ain't broke.
Exactly. And I will just say, sometimes if you are really unsure, and if someone really is just a bit like, you know, I don't know, just try it then, you know. And if it does get to the point where, you know, you do get fatigued, you do get a little bit kind of, you start to realize that the quality is diminishing, that, right, okay, you stop and it was a valuable lesson learned. You've tried it, you know now, move on.
It's like me with AM and PM sessions. I did that for years, just kind of stubbornly. And I just can't even imagine going back to that now. At times I get appealed by it because I'm like, oh, my quality could be better. It's like, man, but it's just not going to be sustainable. I'm not going to enjoy it. Even I thought sometimes I could do calves at home. I could do like single leg stair calf raises at home on my like on some days. It's like, it's just not going to be worth it. The diminishing returns are too large at that point.
Definitely. And it might seem a bit random, but just we don't do nothing else but train, you know. We're not kind of paid to bodybuild. We are coaches. There are people depending on us. We're not just coaches. We've got families, relationships, etc., who all need us. And actually those things give us purpose. And, you know, maybe we could like, do you know what? Maybe I will do a PM session and I'll, you know, maybe either lower my standards in another area or I'll just cut things off, but that might diminish from overall life fulfillment. So again, it's that, you know, bodybuilding shouldn't take over your life. It should just encapsulate it and just be content with like what you're doing. Have faith that you are making progress, even though you don't see it, and you don't necessarily need to do more.
Yeah. Next question.
Yeah. So Patrick Morris asks, I train right out of bed at home, 10 minutes on the treadmill. What else can I do to get my body ready, especially for legs? I don't have heaps of time.
Nice. So I would say hydration is important. going into this. So the fact that you're immediately going to train, I would really try and encourage you to get some fluids on board. You obviously don't want to take in so much that you're now distended through the gut and that sort of thing, but definitely try and hydrate. So like when you're waking up and just getting fluids, a decent hit of them that doesn't lead to bloating is what I would do. Outside of just 10 minutes on the treadmill, you might not even need 10 minutes, to be honest with you. There was actually a recent paper, I believe, that went over the impact of warm-ups on like hypertrophy and all of this. And it was basically like, you don't need to warm up, was essentially like the too long didn't read. I do think some warming up is wise, but outside of getting heart rate up, getting the body warm, which you will with 10 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes, and maybe doing a few dynamic stretches if you feel a bit tight and you just want to loosen up a little bit, just get straight into your first compound lift and start slowly acclimating the load up and slowly reducing your reps. You might do like the bar for 10, and then you might do 25% of your working weight for 8, and then 50% for 4, and then do 75% for a double, and then do like 90% for a single, and then your working weight for a single, and then you're like, you're warmed up for like your whole session almost at this point. If you're training legs and that was squats, for example, you don't need to worry about like extensive warm-ups for everything after that. I don't know if you have different opinions, Mike.
My head went in the same direction, to be honest, and I would even say don't be afraid to go a little bit higher. Like you said, have the bar on your back, and maybe even you just do 20 or 30 reps even, and just those.
Fuck that. That's cardio. He's done his cardio before that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. You could just sack off the treadmill and just do 20 to 30 reps on the squat. Hey, like there you go. So I think I'm very much kind of in the same boat as you there, Steve. And yeah, I would just kind of say, don't worry. It's not you. Maybe try different things and see what works for Patrick. Try what works for you, because it might be that, hey, maybe the treadmill is really good for you because it just gets your mind and your cogs whirring a little bit. But then also do try doing just the bar with 30 reps. See if that feels any different, if that saves you a bit of time. Yeah, and then go from there.
Yeah, I can't think of anything outside of those things that they'd inevitably be beneficial. Just doing it first thing, the warm up is no different to any other time of day, to be honest. I think there was a time where warm ups were way too long, and that was Supple Leopard days. If you remember, Kelly Starrett, do you remember the days? People would spend more time warming up than they would doing the actual session. So, not required. Next question, Mike, is from Nabil Cabo. Sorry, I probably said your name really poorly there. But during comp prep, if you overshot steps in one day, better to even out the next day to stay within your daily goal or not increase your rate of steps. I don't know, ROS? I don't know what ROS stands for. But yeah, what do you think? Overshooting your steps one day, undershoot the next day? How would you go about it, Mike?
I would say it depends on the degree of overshoot a little bit. So I would say if you've only overshot by 1,000 or 2, I wouldn't stress about it. I really wouldn't. But if you've you've gone, your average step count is say like 10,000 and you've done a 30,000 step day, then I'd be like, yeah, I would maybe definitely consider drawing it back a little bit, or even consider reflect on, what training are you doing in terms of, have you got a leg day straight after that 30,000 step day? And, prioritize performance from that perspective. So yeah, again, have a little bit of a lower step day. So yeah, I think it depends on the degree with which someone has overshot.
Yeah, I would say, and it's not where I thought you were going to go, but that's where context is important, right? Like we don't know how much that person's overshot by, but our general practice is similar to calories. You can hit a weekly average for the week. But, and I've never thought about this, Mike, but it's probably sensible to have, as we do, have a recommendation of calories not going over by more than 20% or under by 20%. So if you have a 2,000 calorie goal for the end of the week, you wouldn't go over 2,004 or under 1,600 because we want to avoid extremes. You could say the same for steps, actually, and not a bad thought, where if someone's step goal was to average 10,000, then you wouldn't really want them probably going much above like don't know, 15,000 on one day, because that does start to get into extremes, and then you really wouldn't want them go below 5, because it's like, well, if you haven't already done a high step count day during the week, you're now having to make up quite a lot of steps. So it's probably wise not to go to extremes, but generally just aim to land close to your weekly step count goal, and being a bit above that. Like I'm not concerned if my clients are like 1,000 or even 2,000 above their average weekly step goal. It's just like, hey, that's like, in some sense, it's a little bit of bonus. You don't burn that many extra calories from a 2,000 extra every day. Maybe it's net 50 at most. So it's not really a game changer. So not a concern.
Oh, right.
Nice. Right. Yes, final question. Well, at least from this box.
Client of mine, shout out to Chris.
Nice one, Chris.
Yeah, appreciate Chris listening into the podcast. So Chris asks, and I actually made a post about this not too long ago, and I have kind of answered this already, so it'd be great to get this from you, Steve. But so Chris asks, my mesocycles often only last 5 to 7 weeks. I hit 0 RIR for several exercises and find recovery hard by then. Have you got any tips for getting mesos to 10 weeks?
Now I see why you ended up doing your post. Which people, if you're not following Mike over on Instagram, definitely follow Mike at Mike Revive Stronger over on Instagram, so you can get these posts. So yeah, when I look at this, and I sometimes think about this, and this is something that I think people can fall into the trap of, is they try and have the mesocycles like as long as possible, and the goal isn't to have your mesocycles as long as possible. Because we could easily make mesocycles really long if we only trained 1 time a week and trained everything at like 3 or 4 RER with the minimum effective volume. That'd be the longest. That would be the easiest. But you're not going to gain very much muscle doing it that way. So you really want to find an amount of volume that is very stimulative. And we're not trying to grow the most amount in one single week. We're trying to grow the most long term. So it needs to be a good chunk of volume, but is sustainable, that you can adapt to and progress with. So one thought that comes to mind is, if your mesocycles only last 5 to 7 weeks, that's not necessarily a problem. I don't think that's such a short mesocycle that it's like, hey, that's terrible. It's only if someone was maybe 3-week mesocycle lengths, I'd start thinking, hey, that's a bit short. Maybe you're going a bit too hard, or you're doing a bit too much. And that's what I'd be modifying, is volume and intensity, both or one. So for someone who wants to extend their mesocycles, I wouldn't necessarily, and the programming is fundamentally sound, which, Mike, you're programming for him, so I know it is. If you want to extend it, therefore, I'd be looking at things outside of the gym. So is there a way to increase your recoverability? Could you get better sleep? Could you have superior nutrition? Could you have lower stress? Are there things outside of the gym that could allow you to extend the mesocycle? But outside of that, if you're doing everything you should be doing and you're training nice and hard, then hey, like, hard training is hard. You should find it tough. And you may find that as you train with 0 RER and higher relative intensities, you just start to adapt to it, as I mentioned at the start, where it's kind of like we frequently push ourselves to 0 RER and can sustain that for several weeks, at least on certain lifts. And you might just find after a while you can adapt to that and you can deal with it well. So yeah, I don't have tips for extending it to 10 weeks, apart from the only situations I'd see that as kind of more appropriate to extend it is if someone had a holiday in 10 weeks. And I was like, okay, we're arbitrarily trying to extend this for 10 weeks. But otherwise, you just kind of set it, let it go, and the deload you auto-regulate based off the fatigue that you accumulate. And if it's 5 to 7 weeks, that's fine. That might just be life circumstances for both me and you, Mike. As you, like we've mentioned many times, like, this is our life. We don't have loads of external stressors to have to deal with, and we prioritize this a lot, so that inevitably allows us to maybe have longer mesocycles versus others. We're also advanced and have been doing this a long time, so our bodies are well adept at it. So yeah, hopefully that I think it was similar to how you answered it, and probably covered most of the points you covered with him.
Yeah, very much the same. And I think, yeah, I tried to make a point as well of not comparing himself to ourselves for that very reason, because I said to him, like, hey, at the moment I am single. I
Ladies,
coach. ladies.
Wink.
I work from home 2 days a week. So actually the amount of stress that I have compared to someone who's got a family, who works long day shifts or night shifts or whatever, or they've got multiple businesses or their family sick or some, all of those things, it's like that is going to influence things. So I think it's really important that, again, coming back to that comparison element is like, hey, just be wary of not comparing, try to get those ducks in a row to do the best that you can. And then, hey, the rest will take care of itself.
Yeah, and to be honest, I have clients who were of a similar training age to me, similar muscularity to me in the fitness industry. One person immediately comes to mind, and his mesocycles, he could never stretch them out for much longer than 5 or 7 weeks. He'd always just need a deload. And it's just a case of everyone's built a bit differently, right? Our physiology is different. Our genetics are different, as we know. Some people just can endure for longer than others, and that's okay. So I wouldn't feel bad about that. The only other thought that comes to mind, Mike, is if Chris found that 0 RAR had like exponential fatigue compared to 1, you might just decide, and maybe it's on specific movements, you might just decide not to push to that point, or at least only do it on like the final set of the exercise versus like the earlier sets. That's the only other modifier. Again, it comes back to modifying intensity, but for some people, I don't personally find this, but the 0 RAR might just not be worth it. Or for example, I don't intentionally push like a 0 RAR on RDLs, for example. It's definitely like a technical 0 RAR versus anything else, because it's just not worth the fatigue cost, which is injury, really.
Yeah. No, again, that's a valuable context. I just think that's spot on. And I know, I know. So I don't think Chris will mind, but we have got some exercises in there, such as the barbell back squat. And, that is a very, fatiguing exercise. So it's like, maybe we could switch that out for a hack squat or, a different something else. So, and that could help things. So I think those are great points.
Cool. Mike, we've covered all the questions from the previous question box. This actual recent question box doesn't have that many. So I think we can hold that for next time, because we're deep into this episode now. So thank you, Mike, for making this happen. A lesser person would have taken the opportunity just to relax and try and de-stress because of what they've been through. But I'm glad you're still here with us, first of all, and I'm glad the injuries are ones that will recover over a short time window. But again, I'm very sorry, and I'm sure the listeners will be as well. Definitely comment, Mike, get better ASAP, or something along those lines. Give Mike a lot of love and appreciation, and I appreciate you guys for your questions.
Yeah, likewise, appreciate you, Steve, and I appreciate all of you listening in. Even if you're not commenting on YouTube, listening on the podcast, we do appreciate you. And I'm going to harness Gone's healing capability and also Wolverine, all of those people, and we'll see what happens.
Deadpool, you want Deadpool's healing ability as well.
Yeah, do you know what? So sorry, I haven't seen Deadpool.
I think we've spoken about it. I don't think he'd be your type of guy. He might be, though. He actually could be. I wonder. I don't know. You might actually find him completely hilarious. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'd be interested. You need to watch a Deadpool and see. I'd be interested. Anyway, on that note, not on the note of Deadpool, but guys, do like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you want to ask a question, the Hypertrophic Time Chamber is linked in the description. You can join on Instagram, or just you can DM me or Mike, or even just comment on YouTube, whatever you like, and we can answer your questions. We are online coaches, as a reminder too, so this is what we do for a living. We help our clients with these sort of things. So if you would like some personalized coaching and get the most out of your bodybuilding journey, we're here. Hit us up, and you can get a consultation. It's linked in the description below. Otherwise, guys, we'll catch you in the next episode.
See you later, guys. Take care.